So go ahead and close your eyes. Imagine you're in the forest. You're among the trees, in the dirt, the soil. You're among the fungus, the mushrooms. Sorry, 1 second. The mycelium flowing from one side of the tree across to the next tree, allowing the mushrooms to gather nutrients to grow. From decay comes the mushroom, provides food both for the wildlife and for those daring enough to try them. So it brings me to the topic, what is a mushroom? Oh yeah, Carl, you can go ahead and bring up the first slide. So what is a mushroom? Would anyone know the dictionary definition for what a mushroom is? Or the most common definition?
It's the sex organs of a fungus.
Yes. Or in this case, the way they describe it is more of the fleshy, spore-bearing, fruiting body of this fungus, which is the nicer way of putting that. It's basically the visible system of it. Exactly. Now, the common characteristics that you'll find for mushroom and what you'll find on a good majority of them, there's some where you'll see that are missing one or more of these characteristics, but your most common characteristics that you'll have is that it'll have the stem, the cap, and the gills. What you won't see is that underneath the stem is the mycelium, which goes from the mushrooms to the nutrients around. And from what I was reading on it, is that it'll actually network among the trees, and it can give warning to the other trees in the area about the decay of another tree or diseases or changes in the environment. So I'll go ahead and pass it around. You can pass it this way. I'll go ahead and pass the two. All right, I'll go ahead and pass this way. We got two different posters. Some of them have very similar mushrooms on it. The reason why I wanted to show off the poster is it'll give you great characteristics of the fruiting body that is the mushroom.
We'll have close second to those later.
And that will be, I mean, you donate.
Yes. A lot of these ones are going to show both poisonous. Most of them are going to show the poisonous natural mushrooms.
Huh?
We're going to be covering a little bit of everything psychedelic. We'll be covering the poisonous, and then of course the edible ones. Both most common as well as some of the lesser common found mushrooms, or the more costly varieties.
Those are.
There's trouble hunting pigs.
People are gonna hang that up on the walls anyway.
They have to be found with pigs and
If they're
dogs.
wanting to.
I thought it was paper.
I don't know if it looks like the poisonous one.
Yeah, a lot of them are the poisonous variety that you'll find along the trees.
I have this one growing.
Yeah.
But it was.
Definitely. I just know the ones that you find that are the poisonous species, a lot of them are the ones that best show the definitive features of the mushroom. Because then you get to the ones like the edible ones, they have some of the characteristics, but they're also not as, what's the word to say? As pretty. It's probably the best way to say it. They're not as attractive.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the
Hashtag,
ones,
I want every this mushroom asking for a friend.
Have you ever heard the term beauty is pain?
Alright.
Or hate? Same thing. Permission is headaches, but it also causes pain.
Okay, good.
Graduate
These are probably the worst.
There's a lot of them.
Okay, Carl, go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is, we got a little bit of the pictures for the mushroom. So I got the common button mushroom, and then the mushroom in mythology, and that looks to be a dwarf carrying along a mushroom, or yeah, I believe it's a dwarf carrying along a mushroom.
No.
All right, go ahead and go to the next slide. And then that's a little bit more of the characteristics for the mushroom. We'll go ahead and put the presentation online because unfortunately the slides are a little bit small to see the characteristics, but it just shows you a little bit more of the variety for the shapes, for the stem, for the cap. Go ahead, next slide. All right, so we'll go ahead and go to the history of the mushroom. So mushroom has, this is a little bit of mushroom history, has a little bit of fungus history. So one of the earliest fungi that can be considered a mushroom is the Archaeomyces legletti, which is from the mid-Cretaceous period. And then the other one that they have is the Orcharia giralde. I may be mispronouncing it slightly. That one was a billion-year-old fungus and one of the earliest fungus that's found on record in the amber. And if you go ahead and go to the next slide, it'll go ahead and show a picture of both of the top one there is the one from the mid-Cretaceous period. The one on the bottom is that's the one that was found in the amber, which was one of the earliest fungi that was found. And then we'll go to a little bit more ancient history, but not as far back, is we'll go into ancient Egypt. So ancient Egypt, so to give you a picture for how mushrooms were seen in ancient Egypt, it was considered a gift from Osiris. It was one that was reserved for royalty, so Pharaoh and his favorites, the higher ranking in society. And what they considered was life out of decay. It followed the life-death cycle, and the mushrooms represent all three stages for life and death: birth, growing older, and decay. And it's also life out of death, because from the decay in the soil comes the fungus and the mushrooms that sprout. So ancient Egypt, one of the earliest one, and then on the pictures that we have on the slide is some of the hieroglyphics that shows mushroom in ancient Egypt, as well as on some of the stone carvings. Next slide, please. Now, next one, ancient Greece. Now, this one's fun because this will tie into our next subject, which is the psychedelic mushrooms. So, ancient Greece, mid-4th century. So, with the ancient Greece, a lot of the philosophers used the psychedelic mushrooms, inspired them in their works. It was also related to, they consider it a cult, the Eleusinian mysteries. And one of the ones that you can see in the artwork here, and which is the most common myth, is that for Persephone and Hades, is that when Persephone was stolen by Hades, it doomed the crops, and one of the ones that was impacted by it was the mushroom, which represented the scent, the search, and the accent from the myth. All right, next slide, please. Here we go. Now we move to ancient Rome. So mushrooms had a very negative impact on ancient Rome. they were considered a vile, um, a vile product in that time frame. They were considered to be dangerous. They considered that mushrooms grown by serpent holes, which, as you know, the serpent was considered to be evil and dangerous, one that must be feared. So the mushrooms that grew by that was more poisonous. And that for Claudius and for Charles IV, for the emperor, they were both poisoned. Now, there's two different rumors that go around with that. One is saying that the death caps specifically was what killed them, and the other is it's rumored to be toadstool.
Either one will do it.
Either one will do it. Either one will do it. Both get to claim credit for their death, that they were fed poisonous mushrooms in with their food, and well, it led to changes in Rome. Because after that, I'm trying to think who was after that. If I remember, I'll come back to it. Go ahead, next slide. So for psychedelic mushrooms, the psilocybin mushrooms, they've been used in religious, spiritual, or divinity over the 6,000 years of history. Over 6,000 years of history. So for these ones, you can find artwork in caves going back 6,000 years plus, and you can find it in multiple different countries. Go ahead and go to the next one. So, for example, on the left is a cave painting that shows a man wearing a mushroom, or a mushroom man. And then the one on the right is more for South American history, is showing mushrooms in ancient societies. And from what we know for the psychedelic mushrooms, is a little go a long way. They're considered to be safe to take. Usually it's in smaller doses. Now, they're saying that it would take an extremely large amount for it to be dangerous or toxic enough to be deadly. But the more you take, the more of the experience that you get for that. Yeah, it really depends on how far a trip. If you take a little, it can help clarify, for example, if you're seeking answers or you're seeking to reach the next step in your journey, that may be something that you might want to try, possibly. All right, next slide, please. So onto the poisonous mushrooms. So I'm going to start with the most renowned of the deadly mushrooms, the death cap. So it's rumored to have killed Emperor Charles IV. Is it the fourth or the sixth? Fourth. Okay, just wanted to make sure I did read that right. And Claudius. Half a mushroom will kill. It mimics, and now the interesting thing is, if you look at it, it mimics the Caesar mushroom. So if you were to go to gather and you're looking for the Caesar mushroom, you'd want to be very careful if you're going and gathering natural grown mushrooms, because it's very difficult to go ahead and to tell the difference. It can easily mimic it. So with that death cap, what is recommended for is connecting with the dead. Preferably not you, otherwise you're going to enjoy that.
Permanently.
Now,
How connected do you want to get?
exactly. That's just what's going on. But the way that I've heard described is if you have it in, like, on your altar or something, so that way you can go ahead and commune with those who have gone on. And just to give you an idea of some of the symptoms that it gives, and it really depends on the dose, is that the initial symptoms is low blood pressure, vomiting, nausea, and usually within 2 to 3 days is what they're saying, though it depends on how much you've eaten, liver and kidney damage starts to go, so you'll start to decline within the first couple days. All right, next slide,
You're
please.
saying that if you take half or more of it. So
Half
if-
the mushroom.
So
So
if you take
you
if
see,
you take it less than half, that's when you say you can actually journey.
well, no, for that one, I would not recommend it. The death cap,
Not the death.
no, that was more the psychedelic mushrooms.
Yeah.
Psychedelics were the ones that were considered to be relatively safe.
Don't eat anything
next
from the
slide.
yard.
Yeah.
But
Anything
grower.
from pretty much, anything from these two posters are pretty much not safe to eat. But the next one's gonna be the fly agaric. Now, the nice thing is it's very nice looking, but this one is, and now the funny thing is birch, guess where it's found here?
Ah, that's our friend.
Birch trees.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting with this one is it reeks. So it's gonna be similar to, I'm trying to think what the name of the other one is. There's one that's a stink.
Yeah. It's now
There's
puffball. The puffball.
Yeah. There's one
Yeah.
that's like
It's a
this
very
one
stinky.
reeks similar to that. Red with white spots. Now this one here, what they recommend using it for is like banishing or protecting. So for that one, you would not, it's not edible. You do not want to eat it.
What if you touch it? It's only that damage you give.
It didn't
But what if you touch it?
didn't specify from what I saw. Let me see. I'm gonna double check to see if it's specified as far as touch.
I'm gonna stick to my crochet.
Yeah.
Well,
Let's
this
do
is
the point.
fine, but I would think if you touch them, those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if you touch it and then you put your hand on anywhere that's gonna enter your body, you could absorb the spores. And some of them might be able to absorb it through your skin.
Let's see for here.
Yeah.
This one here says for the fly agaric, it says that there are chefs that detoxify it by parboiling in water, as the toxin of this genus is water soluble. It doesn't specify for touch.
Don't drink the water.
I would be careful.
Yeah, I'd be very careful with it. It doesn't specify on here, it's not saying that it's toxic to touch, but it's always a possibility. I'd be careful with it. Because some of them, like this one, for example, says that, like one of the examples they gave for the fly agaric is that in Siberia, Aboriginal shamans would use it to achieve a trance state. So they would be taking it to enough to where the poison would bring them to an extent.
If I see them, I don't touch them. They're doing their thing.
Exactly, they're pretty to look at, they're great for the environment, but they're not safe for our consumption.
Touching the mushroom is harmless.
It is harmless? Okay. Because there are some that do have a poisonous effect where it will cause issues, but
Certain boards could be acidic.
yeah. All right, next slide, please. Now this one here, so this one here goes through, now this is just the general name for the variety of mushrooms, the Amanita. It's multiple species, it ranges from edible to highly poisonous. The example of the edible one is the Caesar mushroom.
But that was a bad one.
No, Caesar mushroom's the one that looks very similar to the death cap. That's the one that's the death cap can mimic it.
Death camp?
Death cap,
Yeah.
death cap. Because the death cap's the one that mimics
Wouldn't
it.
that also be inspiration of Super Mario Brothers mushroom, that one, because the hallucinogenic properties, it would make you think you're going bigger or smaller?
Exactly, that's
Yeah.
one of them. Between that and the toadstools.
Yeah.
And then, so for this one, so what they recommend for these is that it's for earth, like earth-based spells or grounding, if you need to go back to nature. The ones like the Caesar mushroom, what they recommend for that is divination or healing magic. For the more poisonous varieties, for that, it was considered to be like hexing or warding from hexes. Next slide, please.
Yum.
Okay, so now we'll move on.
Those are right over there.
So we'll move on to the edible ones. So I kept it brief on the poisonous because if I was to go through all the poisonous ones, we'd be here for a good month going through all the varieties and.
They're poisonous, they're not.
More poisonous than that, yeah.
Lots.
The majority, yeah.
You gotta be very careful, because when
I
you
mean,
get
there
it,
is a bunch. There's a bunch of varieties that are edible, like the.
Chicken of the woods.
Like, for example, the Mushroom Magic book, it gives you a good, I believe it's a good, like, 15 or 20 varieties that are the more common ones that you can find.
But I think in the case of most mushrooms, it's the poison, but like what degree of poisonous that they get. Some are very deadly, other have very lower degrees. I mean, you should touch them, but like, there you go, yeah.
Exactly. Because you got the ones like, for example, like the lion's mane's edible. So that's a good example of ones that are edible. A lot of these ones, I believe they describe it for the mushrooms is that it's not that it's not poisonous. It's not poisonous to humans. Is more what it is. Because you think about it, for a fungus, a lot of what's in it is one that can be either beneficial or deadly to humans.
A lot of it comes down to the dosage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
The
like,
dosage and the type of fungus.
Going back to the lion's mane is actually one of the more beneficial for humans.
That one's good. That's one of the ones they use for medicine.
Yeah.
It's the lion's bane, it's the, what is it, the hen of the, I think what the other one is, the hen of,
like she said, the chicken of the woods.
yeah, hen of the woods, I think it's
Chicken of
called.
the woods.
Yeah. Hen of the woods, some of those ones you'll be able to find it, because that was more typical like the Chinese medicine and more of that sort, and then it picked up in the US and Europe. And on Amazon, a lot of the ones that you'd find for lion's mane, you'll find in a pill form.
Yeah, capsules, I'll take it.
Or powdered.
Powder. Or tea.
Now, the nice thing is with the bun mushroom, now, interesting enough, just like the death one, is that for this one, symbolism to life and death. So, symbolism to life and death. Symbolism to life and death. And for the kitchen witches, vitality, abundance, energy balance. You can also use it for the mourning rituals, like if you're mourning a loved one that just passed. And the reasoning that was given for that is one that's more typically considered to be among the decay. Not saying that the other ones can't be used for it, but that's one that's more directly attributed.
Something good that comes out of decay.
Yeah, something good that comes out of decay.
You're not saying when someone dies, you give them those mushrooms.
No.
Or no, more of if, like, for example, some of the examples that they gave was more like communing with the loved one that's passed. If you're more reaching to connect, either that, or if you're trying to do like a celebration of life and death, would be to have these mushrooms as part of your altar. Was more of the example that was given was more for that style. Or if you're using it for kitchen witchery, you would use it with, for these, I believe it was like garlics, onions, more to do for vitality, abundance. Yeah. Really depended on the style of cooking that you're going for. A lot of these ones, all the examples I could find, other than using it for like an altar for more of like the mourning or for death related, is that you'd use it all in cooking. All the ones that's in the back of the book for the mushroom magic, it's all cooking recipes. It's like dry it, cut it up, put in like either like a saute, put in fry it, bake it, It was all using like different herbs and seasoning with it depending on your preferred method of cooking and what your intention is. Now, trying to think the best way to do it for this part. Should I go ahead and grab just plates and put them where
Pass
they
it
have
around,
to
everybody
live?
take one? Take them down, pass them.
We have things?
No, just take one. We're not doing Russian roulette here.
No,
There's
that-
one hidden in there that should not be in.
Mine's a white tight shade.
One is there.
Mushroom.
Like the other.
If you find one of those, you know, right to it. That might not be the sixth one.
There might be almonds. Are we in it?
Did you eat it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, these
Yeah.
are.
You had it.
I don't
Now
know.
in your mouth.
But
You can eat it from another.
Those are to the deadly mushroom. Everybody got? Leaves over filters. There we go.
Maybe you never put it again.
Start foaming at the mouth, we'll just take it.
Out there in the yard.
Reasonable.
Like,
compromise.
I am
Good reaction.
Are we supposed to eat them?
It's swimming in, right?
Delicious.
yeah,
John,
if you like the for the
my survival plan is to grow mushrooms.
Yeah, you can.
And personally,
I don't know if you would have tried it. I mean, I gotta go try it. I got your tomato yesterday. You want a mushroom?
Be right back.
Mama,
Your thing?
wanna try one?
Oh, I don't.
But if you put copious much sugar on it, you
Oh,
get them.
she put it in her mouth.
Oh, no.
Eat the texture.
Nope.
That's
It
what
is.
I use.
Yeah.
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 Right out this one? It's a gummy, weird
Yeah.
texture.
I'm texting that to myself to get there.
That's what I think it's fun.
It is
Yeah.
Cause these are the best. They're not cookies.
you know, when you do sauteed those in butter.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
If you eat like this,
These
you
are
get
ones
the
that,
earthiness.
Yeah.
Like if you want grounding or if you're trying to get them more back to nature,
Yeah.
this is great because, I mean, even with cleaning it and getting the dirt off it, you still get that very earthy,
Yeah. You can taste
earthy
the earth.
taste.
So what do they grow? I think I'd rather eat dirt.
That one, these will be cracked because of the bun, that was more commercial.
I've seen her put dirt in her house.
Just call it an organic growing media.
Yeah, no.
That's
It's a
the,
mixture of manures and fertilizers.
Yeah, that's why you wash your mushrooms too.
yeah,
So but it's still,
It's in earth.
it's still earth.
It grows,
It's
yeah, it
wash
grows in
them,
earth.
No.
Usually down in caves,
Yeah,
poorly lit.
it's like, I kept in the dark and everybody shits on me, I must be a mushroom.
cause this one, they mentioned it being cultivated underground in West France. So that's probably a good example of it being literally treated and fertilized.
Yeah.
The undergrounds of France, medieval times, yeah.
All right, I'm not gonna eat anymore.
All right.
Oh,
Oh, no, I read all these.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's all,
Very good.
next slide, please.
What we got?
Much to his sadness, but I love it.
Okay, so portobello,
Mm.
edible, aligned with the crown archetype.
Because these are raw.
It's good for grounding, wisdom, or death rituals. This also says it can be used for cord cutting, so if you're trying to get over a relationship, now I'm not sure if there's anyone that would be able to give a little bit more wisdom on why it says to do it during the waning moon?
Well,
That's the time of banishing.
Oh, when banished, okay.
Yeah. That's the banishing moon. So,
And then I'll pass it around.
portobello.
Trial.
You wanna try one of those mushrooms?
You won't like it, doesn't taste like
Come on.
cookies. Ah,
I don't wanna hold.
and they give me that,
Mushroom
back,
flavored
okay.
cereal.
My
If you guys want to practice it, that's okay.
Here, you can have one.
Want carrots, mama?
I know you like my carrots.
I would have it be.
Now that,
I That's better than the first.
Yeah, the buns usually the case where you gotta cook them first.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Portobellos are a little bit better.
I was thinking,
Well,
vineyard,
I
kind of
love
like a wine
the
case, whatever, mushroom
mushroom
beans.
salad,
Yeah.
it's really good.
Now, if you put, yeah, if you
usually
slice these up in a salad with all the other
Mhm.
flavors,
I'm not saying the
Well,
wrong.
portobello is pretty good though, because with that, and what I like with the portobello is a lot of times for the cooking side, that you can usually get either like stuffed, if you want like cheeses, or trying to think what else, usually like cheeses, seafood,
Yeah.
ground beef.
That's what I'm
Kinda like how you do with like the, peppers,
I wouldn't
where you go
choose
ahead and
to eat
fill up the, portobello with that, that is an
Yes.
example.
Bring your mouth.
Cause usually I find the portobello tastes a bit better than the bun, as far as, it's a little bit less earthy. Alright, next slide, please.
Careful. Your mouth is all okay.
Okay, so next slide, indigo milk cap, edible, very unique. If you see one,
You need it.
you'll be able to tell by the nice indigo blue texture. It's great for mind, wit, and the throat chakra. So with that, a lot is focused on the intelligence, communication spells, and the milk itself from the milk cap. If you drain the milk from it, it can be used for candles with the same intentions for the throat, mind, wit, intelligence.
You make the candle out of milk?
The milk of the mushroom. Like you'd be able to, my understanding is you'd be able to strain it and you use that to go ahead and make the candle.
Interesting.
It's gotta be expensive though.
That's a-
Yeah. The indigo milk, that would be very hard to find.
That's
You'd
gotta
have
be
to,
expensive.
that would be very
It's not achievable.
costly. That one would be very costly. That's, the only ones you're gonna find in like the grocery stores is mainly the lion's mane. You'll find the shiitake, the oysters are good, the portobello, the bun. If you maybe go to Whole Foods or some, fancier one, you might find the hen in the woods. But a lot of the ones like the indigo milk cap, that's a lot more rare. It'd be
Where do
like the
they
next
grow?
one that's coming up, the black trumpet.
Where do they grow?
Location would
Native.
dictate price, I would imagine.
Yeah, where are they native to?
Indigo? Let me see.
That's probably where you gotta go to really buy them.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Let me
the
double check.
Peruvian purple.
That's why I
potato.
brought the book just in case, that way I can double check on the,
Your mushroom lore questions will come up with.
cause it's very good questions. Oh, the one that I did miss that's on here that was actually there was the king trumpet.
Oh, yeah.
That one's another oyster mushroom, so when I get to the oyster mushrooms, I'll go ahead and talk about that one as well. Let's see. Here we go. So the indigo milk cap, it says it can be found across North America, East Asia, and Central America, but it's mostly found on the ground of deciduous and coniferous forests.
You talking about the black trumpet?
Sorry,
Indigo.
the indigo,
Oh, the
indigo,
indigo.
the indigo milk cap. So for that one, it's mostly found in forests. For this one here, it's got a label as a bitter and peppery taste. So if you want one that's a little bit more of an interesting flavor, that one will be one to find. Now, here's the places where it says you'll find it: Mexican, Guatemalan, and Chinese market. Mexican, Guatemalan, and Chinese market. Now, for that, that may be more in, I'm thinking that may be more in possibly Latin America or more,
Well, there's,
maybe like Texas. I'm trying to think where else. Cause most of the ones that I've seen, like, well, Florida's not really a good example,
Have you,
but
have you tried looking in any of the Chinese, grocery stores?
that'd be a good point to check there. Cause the ones I've mostly seen, or at least the ones where it's more,
Most of those are probably gonna be dry.
yeah,
That's the best.
it's gonna be hard to find them like fresh like this.
You gotta go to Guatemala.
Yeah,
You think I need them dry?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, well, what you do is you soak them, you rehydrate.
yeah. Now, the Black Trumpet, now this one was interesting because it's got that more of a funnel shape to it. You see it's got the really well-defined cap, the really deep stem. And for this one, it's got more of a smoky profile, so I'm thinking more of a barbecue type of sensation for it. And for that one, it's considered to be good for abundant spells and for rituals with ancestors.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's gonna be another one that's gonna be hard to find though.
I would guess.
That one's gonna be another one that's hard to find.
We need to figure out what to kill and let it die.
The chanterelle.
Yeah.
There you go. Meaty funnel shape, and they say it's an apricot-like taste, and the fun thing with this one, they're like fried, boil it, saute it, good for relationship spells, so if you want to work on relationships or more of to build new ones, maybe not necessarily to try to improve other relationships, because you gotta remember, if you're making it for someone else, you gotta make sure that they approve of it and is accepting of it.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's the big thing with the relationship spells.
Not explaining why yours hasn't worked.
And then for medicine use, it's anti-inflammatory, rich in vitamins. I mean, that's gonna be with most of these mushrooms, rich in vitamins. Next slide, please. Here we go, the enoki. Edible, long stem, small cap and clusters, rich in vitamin and minerals, healing, cleansing, and purification. A lot of it that you'll see for that. Now, depending on the place that you've seen, where I've seen it is more of like in ramen or in broth dishes that you find. It's a very, very tasty mushroom. Very nice flavor. Very
Yeah,
nice
that's-
flavor and.
Next to, I forgot what the name of that mushroom is, the ribbon ones, the ribbon-y like ones. I forgot what it's called, but it's either that or those.
Those ones I know are good though, because I've
Yeah.
had that in ramen, especially if you get like the ones, if you find a legit ramen place though, and they got that and they got the good eggs, oh,
Yeah.
nice bro. Those are really good.
I like the name, no.
Yeah.
I use
Enoki,
Loki.
enoki.
Alright, and then, next slide. Oh, I did have head of the woods in here.
So you can have, tastes like chicken?
It's funny, I should've gone that. I didn't remember.
Turkey,
I
Tastes
didn't-
like chicken.
Edible, large fruiting body. As you can tell from that, it's like one big cluster. It's basically, if you think about it, you think of like how the oyster, where it's a big cluster of them. For those ones, it's almost more of a, I'd almost say moss-like in the.
It looks like
In the
feathers
style.
from here.
That's.
It's got medicinal properties to it. It's good for healing, abundance. And then the next up is gonna be the oyster. Edible, fan-like, mild nutty flavor, gray, brown, browning. Oh, sorry, there's different colors for them. The most common that you're gonna find is like the gray, brown like this.
Ooh.
And how do you eat that?
I'll go ahead and pass it around for everyone to look at this. Because for this one, gray brown's for grounding, it's the more earthly one. It also says there's a pink, and I know there's a yellow, which is the golden oyster. The yellow one's more for intelligence, confidence. Goes with more like the mind chocolate.
Beautiful.
Here we go. So the king trumpet. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring up this one real quick because it goes along with the oyster. It's called the French horn mushroom. It's an edible oyster mushroom. It's usually found in Europe, Middle East, North Africa, and parts of Asia, so we don't get it here as much. Now, the fact that they had it at Fresh Market was pretty cool, but they had it in either you had the option to get it sliced, so you got this nice.
So they give you like a little bit, piece for $25.
It was, well, it was like $10. It was like $10, but it was 5 to 10, depending on the container. But they had it sliced, you had a nice king trumpet this way, or they had the thick, like, 1 or 2 of the actual mushroom itself.
That was every case.
I've never
The
seen
oyster?
this
Yeah.
raw, really delicious. But very earthy, too.
And then,
A little peppery, very earthy. Yeah.
and then the next slide, please.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
mushroom
Rubbery.
spongy.
All right, and then we got the shiitake mushroom edible. As we can see here from our display here, as you can see, oops, oh,
It fell into Abuelita's candle?
no, I bumped it,
Oh, that's okay.
so it kinda went out.
It's not.
Yeah,
She probably just wants the mushroom and is telling you.
He's jealous.
it's an umbrella
Now we're
cap,
all getting to have like some.
so it's got the nice umbrella, I'll go ahead and pass it, so. like
An aftertaste.
Umbrella shaped cap, second most commonly eaten mushroom.
You only get one.
It's supposed to have a very savory flavor to it.
I was supposed to fit every from the brain.
No, it's just the shape. I mean, if you manage to find one that's as big as like the oysters or something where you got a whole cluster, oh, that is cool.
Maybe if you're a mouse.
It's very good.
Huge.
It's great for vitality, healing, and cleansing. Love it from what I've seen for that. That's another one that's in more of the Asian dishes. I think it's more Chinese. Is it Chinese or Japanese? That's
Japanese.
usually- Japanese cooking.
Japanese loves the shiitakes.
Is the shiitake.
It's actually, yeah, because the name is Japanese, actually.
That's what I was thinking. I knew it was one or the other. I know in the American Chinese food, you'll find some that have the shiitake mushrooms as well.
Wow.
Oh, the texture. Once they go down, it's better.
They're good.
Like mushroom. You're not gonna like it. I think that's done.
Hey!
It's so strange how different they taste. When you think mushroom, you think of it just that, tastes like a mushroom. But they're so
They
different.
definitely have different.
They're so
flavorings.
mushroom.
Couple stickers I found.
I put them when I trained that Ava found them. The native species with more Ava found than stickers. Yeah, with more different species than any other
Yes.
human. I mean, not human, but human being. Something to say. Don't specify the fact that Ava found.
I mean, it just always amazes me that mushrooms and fungi are
Ooh, I like that one.
almost, everyone thinks them as plants, but they're not
They're not.
plants. They're much older than plants.
There's something between a plant and an animal, and they
And
have
that's
an
why you have to
intelligence.
really get it.
Well,
Shiitake preferred.
Usually gotta get it faster.
Take me.
That's what I'm doing. That's what mushroom.
Either way.
That's what I'm Sunday. I've got a whole bag of them.
No, here we go. Then so everyone on Zoom can see, we got a nice, a little bit more of a psychedelic style, but mushroom stickers. I think that covers the presentation. Now, there's many more mushrooms that can be learned about,
Okay.
but this was a good example of the most common ones that you'll find. As much fun as it would have been to go over all the poisonous types that you could come along, I figure let's keep it more to the edible so you can find ones that you can work into either drying and using it in your altar spaces, you can also mix it in with like herbs and spices, or if you want to add it to your, once you dry it, and have it a little bit better preserved, put it in with either some herbs, spices. You can put it in, because it goes good with some of the floral, like if you're using, thinking more of like the herbs, like thyme, if you're using like rosemary, you can put in with herbs like that.
So this would be a
Thyme,
good
tarragon,
addition to
thyme.
our spell bag.
Yes,
Thyme and
Yes.
tarragon are very good.
yes, it worked well for your spell bags. Now for that, probably gonna be the easiest one's gonna be to go with probably like the white mushroom or the bun mushrooms, where it's gonna be, or the portobello. Something, you're gonna want something, if you're gonna use it for the spell bags, you're gonna want something easy that's gonna be easy to cut and will dry easily. So all of them could work.
Dried in a lot of things, it's a lot dried mushrooms, so
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah.
They're kind of ubiquitous, any grocery store will have them.
Have dried mushrooms a lot of
Yeah.
times.
Otherwise, can you just like slice them and dry them out in the sun?
Yeah, you can dry them out
Or
on the sun.
dehydrator.
A lot of the ones for the books is they more recommend to like dry it, like put in the oven for like 15, 20 minutes. A lot of them do it for short times, but they're doing it like the 350. It's almost more of like a baking. of the-
Yeah, you should, to truly dry it, it should be a much lower.
Yeah.
Like 120.
Yeah,
About 120.
that's what they were
120 for a
recommending,
couple
weirdly
hours.
enough. So for example, let me see
Yeah,
here.
get a dehydrator, or dehydrator.
Yeah, get a dehydrator.
This one does have, one of the books, one of the ones said to dry the mushrooms at 150 degrees for an hour.
Yeah.
So it really depends. Now, let me see what mushroom they're recommending for that one. Oh, black trumpet. Let me go look.
And
I
make
wanted to
sure
go
they're
see
really.
that.
Yes.
Yes.
You don't wanna find the, they'll be,
mushrooms.
they'll be,
You know
they'll be
one of them
changed if they're not dry.
You do not want them to mold. Otherwise, you will find that you will not like the decaying effect.
Hold on, it says decay, what is it, the same thing, decaying?
No, once you smell it,
Okay,
you won't wanna eat it.
It's gonna smell real bad.
No, it's not.
It's gonna smell real bad.
And that is the smell of rotten potatoes.
The posters that we have, do you have a?
Oh, God.
a production
Now.
name on it? Like who makes
Oh.
them?
We don't know.
Yeah.
This,
I smelled that. I'd have to clean it up.
Is that where you got it from?
yeah, I got some Timu, but they had these, basically these exact same posters on Amazon, but it was like $11.
Okay.
Found these ones on Timu for like $3 each.
Yeah, I was thinking about Timu.
Yeah.
Timu is,
That's like Wish.
it's like a little bit more quality Wish in a way.
Yeah,
Kinda.
it's like a technically with Amazon.
I never.
Is it Chinese or? is it-
Yeah,
I would trust Amazon over to.
yeah, Amazon's a little better quality. Amazon's a little bit better
We
quality.
love it. Thanks,
Anybody online?
Anybody online?
Anybody online got any comments or questions for Jonathan? Speak now, please. There we go.
Creminis are usually known as baby portobellos. It's the same species, which is really fun, and morels are very good also.
Oh, yeah, they're very good.
I know
Yeah.
someone in South Dakota who collects and sells morel mushrooms.
They
So
are
if you're
very
in the
tasty.
Vermilion, South Dakota area.
Our Asian stores here sell a very wide variety of edible mushrooms. Some of them canned, some of them fresh. And I'm gonna go take a look because there's one of them that I really enjoy. I can't remember what it's called, but I'll have to find it and maybe post a picture because it's wonderful in soups or in stir fries. They're very tiny and they have brown caps and white underneath and really tasty. But I get creminis all the time because I'm tired of buttons.
Yeah.
They just don't have very much flavor.
That's the thing, they absorb flavors.
Right.
The
The
white mushrooms are, the
They're
buns.
the tofu mushrooms.
Yeah,
They are
yeah,
tofu
it
mushrooms.
is.
Even in culinary, they go like, if you want flavor, don't go with white, go with portobello over anything else.
Yes.
Or added to it if you have oils and stuff,
Yeah.
herbs,
Yeah, you-
they'll
you
make
have-
it taste better.
Where do you get more ones?
Portobello, buns for cooking generally absorb flavors more than give flavors.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very mild.
Well, I just always, my earliest memory of mushrooms is being in the woods and crawling around on the old rotting logs and just watching all the mushrooms grow on them.
I
Like
just
these
love
little
it,
half dome mushrooms, they were always like white and kind of spongy, and there'd be bugs crawling around. So I mean, I definitely think it's cool how you can use that mushroom magic as that sense of decay, where you have a thing which is dying, you know, the tree, the log, but it's giving birth to so much life around it, you know, and I think that's kind of a cool thing to incorporate into any kind of altar when someone you love passes on, because you can think about everything that their body and their spirit is now
Has gone
nourishing in
through,
other forms.
Yeah, I agree, it's a circle of life, when one life ends, it's just working side by side with that thing to kind of reinvent and rejuvenate. Wow, life comes, there's no separation, it's just one big circle.
Pretty much.
Yep.
I mean, I would be okay if my body was given to the mushrooms when I die, but only after I'm dead, not before.
Well, as far as edible mushrooms, this is Kimberly. As far as the edible mushrooms, I never met a mushroom I didn't like. So, I obviously that's a different story with the non-edibles, but yeah, I find them amazing and glorious and delicious, and a lot of them are unaffordable for me. But I used to go to the farmers market in San Francisco on the weekend down at the Ferry Building, and they would have the most amazing selection of every imaginable type of mushroom. So, um, yeah, I can't say enough about how wonderful mushrooms are. So I'm glad to know some of the magical uses for some of them because I haven't really looked into that much. Thanks. Beautiful presentation.
I'm sure it's much more affordable too when you find it at the farmer's market, because you're definitely paying a higher price when you have to go to the grocery store to get them.
And if you're using them in Magic, they don't have to be pretty. So
Right.
check out
Oh,
the
yeah,
discount
exactly.
rack,
Yeah.
scratching dead.
Always look in the back room.
Just remember, never eat the mushrooms growing around your toilet.
No.
Now you tell me. Little late
I
now.
wasn't going to, but
Ann has something to say. Ann, you got your hand up? Go for it.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt Kimberly. My mom, when she was a kid back in like the 30s and 40s, she and the other children in my grandparents' family used to go out in the woods and they would forage for mushrooms. And my grandmother used to pick out the edible ones. She never taught the kids which ones that were edible and not edible. And I remembered something. You were talking about medicinal mushrooms. A friend of mine a long, long time ago followed the Ayurvedic way. And for some reason, he said that they don't eat mushrooms because of some of the negative qualities that the religious overtones have or something, but I have not researched that. So I'm going to see if I can find out what was going on, because I haven't even thought about that until you mentioned it. And I don't think they use mushrooms in Ayurvedic medicine.
For the psychedelic or the more of the regular edible mushrooms?
Oh, they don't eat them. They don't eat them at all. Any kind of fungus.
Yeah,
It might be.
That's a good
Well, I
point.
think it's just, again, the idea that the mushrooms are the force of decay and death. And for those religions which look at death as something bad, I could definitely see where you could then start to make the jump to mushrooms are bad. If you assume death is bad and mushrooms are death, you know, but me, I'm a tree. I just think that the mushrooms are what let me talk to my friends, the birches and fir trees. So, because there's actual mycelial networks, and the mother trees will use the mycelial network to talk to all their daughter trees.
And that's what
And
I
they'll
thought was
even, and like trees that have kinship relationships will have stronger mycelial networks than trees which are unrelated. But there's certain species of trees, like birches and firs, which even though they're not related, they have really strong mycelial networks between each other because they're able to use symbiotic relationships through the network to send messages to each other to help themselves survive.
And that's what I thought was cool, is when I saw that, I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Because what I saw for it was the mushrooms and the fungus, they use that to, as well as to communicate the messages, that's also what helps them to feed.
Yeah,
Because
because
it's similar to the plant roots.
yeah, because what'll happen, like you'll have a tree that's dying, and it will push its nutrients out of its own body and send it to its children before it dies.
Yeah.
And that way, it's almost like it's leaving an inheritance to help make sure its descendants will have a better chance of survival, because maybe there's not enough nutrients to go around, there's like a drought or something, not enough water. So the bigger tree is dying, it knows it's gonna die, so it's sending its remaining nutrients to its children.
Yeah, that's a very,
There's a movie about that out, and I can't remember the name of the movie, or the name of the.
Well, there's a documentary on Netflix about fungi. It's about 5 episodes,
Yeah,
and it's just
it's fascinating.
Yeah.
They show you how it works underground, and
yeah.
it's really.
it's that,
Yeah,
In your research, did you discover what the largest living organism on the planet is right now? This is actually documented. It's in Northwest America. It's in Washington State. It is a 2,100 acre mycelial mushroom.
Wow.
Underneath an evergreen forest. It is all one organism.
Wow.
One
To
mushroom?
the point where, yes, it's all one network. It's all from one single genome. The trees there are almost everything group.
Yeah.
If a fire approaches from one side, all of the water from the forest will go to the side the fire is approaching from, and swell the trees up and snuff the fire before it can invade and kill the mycelial network underground.
That's pretty
I think
impressive.
they have it intelligent.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is it getting bigger?
It grows every year. Yep.
But
They actually
At
have,
its largest, it was almost 6,000 acres. But logging has taken its toll on it.
now is there multiple species of like different mushrooms
No,
that's
it's
connected, or is
it's
all
all the
just,
same genome.
it's one
It's
mushroom,
one
one fungus.
wow.
It's a sister plant of the same, different strain of the same fungus is what causes the redwood trees to get so massive.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think it's,
And again, it's that symbiotic relationship, because the trees don't want to necessarily die in the fire, but the mycelial network also needs the trees to survive. So they're able to communicate with each other and say, hey, all the way over there, there's a fire, quick, let's snuff it out. And they're able to cooperate.
it's that whole dichotomy of it. Well, for me, I guess it reminds me many times of one of those things. Just because it may be harmful, lethal, or fatal to humans, it's never ever going to be something maliciously deliberate. It's going to have a purpose served. But we have to remember that. I've heard a lot of Abrahamic religions saying we are not the owners of the nature kind of thing. Like we work with them, and so it's working for them. It's not all about us. Whatever it happens.
The mushrooms are
It never was.
don't eat me.
Yeah.
If we're very pretty, don't eat us.
Well,
We're dangerous to you.
Or
Well,
mud us
permissible.
and fall down, will grow out.
mushrooms
Yeah.
are actually almost as closely related to animals
Yeah.
as they are to plants.
Yeah.
Like, they have characteristics of both. Because they can think and reason things out, which is,
They can, and they help. And the thing you'll notice is a lot of these areas where you're gonna find a lot of the mushrooms, it's gonna be more in the denser forest or the moss or
yeah.
the ones similar to that. And what I found that was pretty cool with it is even the ones that you'll see for back in the days where it was more like the cavemen, you'll see that they even still celebrate the mushrooms as early as in those early, during those early ages of men.
I think our ancient ancestors might have discovered more for religious purposes to use those mushrooms in that sense. They may have found the food qualities, but depending on what time they were talking, it could be before agricultural things seemed to be, but like before that, then they were probably like more hallucinogenic because, you know, Ken went out to kill the dinosaur and I came back, yeah.
Well, it's an easy thing to forge.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't kill you.
Yeah.
And they were able to figure out that, and then they're like, oh, these ones are amazing, we can see so much
But you
different stuff.
you gotta give them credit because think about it, when they were first discovering it, they went out in a group and then the first guy that showed, oh, this was the Ethan, and the rest of them, oh, well, okay, well, orcas died, make note of that, say no to that mushroom.
Don't say.
Okay, before,
Okay, this is
he's dead, don't touch that mushroom.
It's like the first person that knows the cow.
Yeah.
So, how they died.
Exactly.
Well, the first person that ate an oyster.
You
Well,
remember,
that person.
well, remember, this goes back again to the link with human culture
Yeah.
and the mushrooms, because when you live in multi-generational, you have the person who's lived long enough,
Yeah.
usually the matriarch of the family. Same thing happens in elephant groups.
Yeah.
The matriarch has remembered everything that killed everyone over her lifetime, and she can tell the younger members of the family, don't do that. And that's why male elephants are more likely to die young than female elephants doing stupid shit.
I
Because
was just gonna say that, yeah, because the matriarch would say, oh, well, trust me, don't just, I'm a man, I can do what I want, let me go try, you don't know anything, and then it's, okay, yeah.
male elephants live on their own. They don't have anyone to tell them, don't go in the tar pit. So all of pretty much, I think every single, like 90% of the mammoth fossils which have been found are all young juvenile males.
Oh, yeah, that makes absolute sense, actually.
Because they were the ones who died in ways that preserved their bodies. Usually doing stupid shit.
Isn't that usually what the case?
No, like going into a mud pit.
Well,
Or
one of them
going
was found-
down.
One of them was found with a saber-tooth cat.
One, but most of them are like at the bottom of a river
Caught
bank.
about 10 feet.
So they
away
went,
from
they
each other.
try to cross a river and drown. They're in tar pits and they're over cliffs.
So, I will say this, speaking as a man, that we can honestly say that a lot of that really hasn't changed. Most men these days still will do that. It's just like, I didn't know. We told
Yeah,
them.
exactly.
Where the female elephants have grandma saying, don't go in that tar pit. Remember what happened to your brother?
Isn't that like Guys with Fire? It's like, ooh, watch me do this. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
Well,
Watch
fireworks.
this.
Or
It's always
fireworks.
nice.
The reason why they live longer than us.
Hey, what's
Hold my beer.
Yeah, exactly.
This was good, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you for such great questions too.
Thank you so much. So let's blow out the candle. Jonathan, you wanna do that? I'm gonna blow out the candle. Let's blow out the
Candle, hold it dear, for everyone gathered here. From this road we do depart, secret lessons in our hearts. Let it be, so let it be, Mary meet, Mary part, Mary meet again. Now, Melina, you have to have a dried out mushroom.
Yes, yes.
You can have a mushroom, but we have to dry it out first.
Well, couldn't she dry it up and put fire on it?
She could,
Well, that was
But-
actually,
No,
okay, it was.
but it might burn, like, we need